Former Vice President Mike Pence pointed out that former President Donald Trump encouraged the crowd that attacked the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021, and had wrongly alleged that Mr. Pence had the power to reverse the election result. Former VP Mike Pence alleged that Donald J. Trump was unfaithful to the U.S. Constitution and had abandoned conservative values. Must watch. Happen Just Now. Enjoy hearing your thoughts. Please leave comments. Thanks.
I had hoped that this issue and the judgment of the president's actions that day would be left to the American people. But now it's been brought in a criminal indictment, and I can't assess whether or not the government has the evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt what they assert in the indictment, and the president's entitled to a presumption of innocence. But for my part, I want people to know that I had no right to overturn the election. And that what the president maintained that day, and frankly has said over and over again over the last 2.5 years, is completely false. And it's contrary to what our Constitution and the laws of this country provide.
One of the things we need in our elected leaders, for them to tell the truth, even if it's unpopular. Donald Trump is not running for president to make America great again. Donald Trump is not running for president to represent the people that voted for him in 2016 and 2020. Donald Trump is running to stay out of prison.
Our founders had just won a war against a king. And the last thing they would have done was vest unilateral authority in any one person to decide who would be the next president. I dismissed it out of hand, but sadly, the president was surrounded by a group of crackpot lawyers that kept telling him what his itching ears wanted to hear. And while I made my case to him of what I understood my oath of the Constitution to require, the president ultimately, continued to demand that I choose him over the Constitution. And so in this moment, irrespective of how this case plays out, I want the American people to know that I believe with all my heart that by God's grace, I did my duty that day.
Intelligence? I mean, is it a credible defense to say he was just listening to John Eastman?
You know, I don't think that dog is going to hunt, as you say. First, as to people who had some knowledge of whether or not there was fraud, everyone was telling him that the election was not stolen by fraud. And then as to the issue of what he could do legally at that point, he went through all the lawyers, he wouldn't listen to all the lawyers in the department in various departments or the White House that had those responsibilities, or his campaign. He would search for a lawyer who would give him the advice he wanted. But I'm not even sure you would characterize what Eastman said as advice. I mean, it'd be interesting to see, but I interpret some of what he was saying essentially was, well, it's unclear here, and you can make this argument. I'm not saying the courts would accept it and so forth. And you act on that at your own hazard. Also, I don't think this defensive advice of counsel is going to go forward, because I think the president would have to get on the stand and subject himself to cross-examination in order to raise that, and he'd also have to waive attorney-client privilege.
And what would happen if he got on the stand?
I think it would not come out very well for him.
Do you think it would hurt him?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Why do you think that?
Well, because I think he'd be subject to very skilled cross-examination, and I doubt he remembers all the different versions of events he's given over the last few years.
Do you think he knew that he lost the election?
Do I personally believe that? Yeah, at first I wasn't sure, but I have come to believe that he knew well that he had lost the election.
Look, our country is more important than any one man. Our Constitution is more important than any one man's career. And that's true of me, and that's true of the former president of the United States. So we're going to stand on the facts. We're going to stand by what happened that day, the stand that we took, and trust ourselves to the judgment of Republican voters and ultimately the American people.
And if we elect, I know Listen, I know the truth is hard. But if we elect Donald Trump, we are willingly giving Joe Biden 4 more years in the White House.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to Happen Just Now for more content about accountability of all public officials and policy and procedures.